بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف وجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us tawfiq to continue our studies of philosophy. Inshallah, tonight we will study 2 lessons of the book which are about divine attributes. In original Farsi book, these are lessons 44 and 45. We already discussed existence of God and unity of God. Now we want to talk about attributes of God. There are different issues that we will inshallah discuss, but a very fundamental issue before anything else is whether we are able to understand God's attributes and qualities by our intellect or reason or not. Is human intellect capable of knowing divine attributes? Because in all different religious traditions, all who have believed in God, there has always been a worry that we might not be able to know God at all, or we might not be able to know God completely, or we may liken God consciously or unconsciously to his creatures. So there are many common concerns you find in Islamic tradition, in Christian tradition, Jewish tradition, and other theistic traditions. We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no like or similar. Yeah? لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. Surah Shura, verse 11. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. You cannot find anything like him. Okay? Of course, this doesn't mean that we don't find any sign of God in anything. No, we can find signs of God in other things, but we cannot find anything that we can say he is like God. You know? Do you understand the difference? Because, for example, sometimes you have a brother who looks very much like your father. Okay? And you say, he is like my father. But when you say he is like my father, you don't mean that he is at the level to be compared to your father. You mean he is reminding me of my father. He looks like it's like a sign. But you don't mean that he is like your father, that in the sense that he can replace your father or become, So when we say there is nothing like God, we mean nothing that can be put in the position of God, can be compared to God, can be treated as equal to God. Otherwise, as signs and manifestations and reflections and radiations of God, of course, this is possible. But nothing can be similar to him in the sense of being at his level or even close to his level. So let us see what Muslim scholars have thought about this issue, and then see what is the idea of Muslim philosophers and the idea that our great scholars like Avicenna, Mullah Sadra, Allama Tabatabai, Ayatollah Mutahari, all these people have thought. The first idea that you find among some Muslim theologians and scholars is that they said we cannot know anything about God. They say as soon as we want to study attributes of God, talk about his qualities, we will be suffering tashbih. Tashbih, which means to liken God to his creatures. Tashbih, if you remember, even in Arabic, grammar, we have, tashbih. For example, say, in rhetorics, we say, for example, Zaydun kal asad. Zayd is like a lion. So we say this is tashbih, means to liken Zayd to a lion. There is mushabbah, mushabbahun bih, tashbih, adat tashbih, wajhu shabah, all these things, But in kalam, when we say tashbih, it refers to the idea of those people who liken God to his creatures. For example, suppose that God has a physical body. God has hand, has leg, has face, has space. Maybe they consider him as human being or as other types of creatures of God. This is called tashbih. And mushabbiha are the people who believed in tashbih. Okay? One group of mushabbiha are mujassima, who believe in tajsim. They consider for God jism. They consider a physical body for God.
Are they among the Muslims?
Yes. Some Ahl Hadith, they had this idea. Even you find some Hadith in some collections of Hadith, of course not through the Ahlul Bayt, but you find that sometimes they consider some physical features for God. Okay? So, tashbih is certainly wrong. We cannot liken God to anything. And some people say, as soon as we want to study divine qualities, we will be thrown into the world of tashbih, into the valley of tashbih, or to the well of the tashbih. We will be destroyed in our understanding. And some who are Shia, who are against describing God, refer to this hadith also from Imam Baqir alayhi salam, because there are Sunnis who say this. There might be some Shia also who say this, but not great number in Shia. They say we cannot do any discussion about divine attributes because we will suffer from tashbih. Then they quote, for example, hadith like this. If you remember in Aqaid, I mentioned this hadith. كلما ميزتموه بأوهامكم في أدق معاني فهو مخلوق مثلكم, or here مخلوق مصنوع مثلكم. whatever you try to understand with your mind as an image of God, no matter how careful you are, how much you try to be precise and to articulate very well. كلما ميزتموه بأوهامكم في أدق معاني. Even in the most precise way, you try to form an image of God in your mind. This is your creature. This is something that you have made it. Yeah? مسنوع. It's made by you. مردود إليكم. مسنوع مثلكم. It's a creation like you, and it comes back to you. وَلَعَلَّ النَّمْلَ الصِّغَارَ تَتَوَهَّمْ أَنَّ لِلَّهِ تَعَالَى زَبَانِيَتَيْنِ. Maybe if you ask an ant, how do you understand God? How do you describe God? The ant also would think that God is a giant ant, which has two radars, two antennas. Yeah, for radar they use it. So they think God is a giant ant. Imam Baqir says, لَعَلَّ, maybe, is for our, condition, because we don't know. Maybe if you ask a small ant or small ants, they would imagine God as a big ant with two antennas. So, we human beings, unfortunately, also think the same. We think God is like a Superman, or a supernatural man, a human being who has mind like us, heart like us, eyes like us, hand like us. We may think like this. Even if you articulate it more, still you can never think of God as He is. So they say, look, even Imam Baqir says, you have no way to understand God as He is. So they say what we can do is just follow the Quran and then Hadith and use those qualities for God that are mentioned in the Quran and Hadith. For example, Alim, Qadir, Hay, Murid, Sami', Basir. But what do these mean? We don't know. And we should not make any attempt to analyze them, because as soon as we want to analyze them, it will lead to tashbih. So when you want to say, what does it mean to be knowledgeable? Then you think of human knowledge. What does it mean to be powerful? You think like human power. So they say, we use these qualities and we attribute them to God as we find them in the Quran, but we don't study or analyze them. This is the first idea. The second idea is, they say we can understand a little more. We can understand that God does not have certain imperfections, but we cannot understand what perfection He has. In other words, we can use sifat salbiyah with more understanding than sifat thubutiyah. So, they say, when we say God is alim, don't try to understand what is His knowledge. This just means God, he is not jahil. Okay? Jahil is someone who doesn't know. So when we say God is alim, we mean God, he is not ignorant. But what is his knowledge? We don't know. What is the quality of knowledge? What type of knowledge? Extent of his knowledge? We don't know. We just know that he is not ignorant. When we say God is high, living, we mean he is not dead. But what type of life he has, what is the meaning of life for God, we don't know. So they have gone one step further, but still not very much, advanced. The third view is the idea of the people that they say we can understand to some extent qualities of God, but because our aql is very limited, we should only follow Quran and Hadith, follow the scripture, and don't try to go even a little bit further. Just follow the Quran and Hadith and stop there. You might remember in Baba Hadi Ash we had this discussion that some mutakallimin, some theologians, they had the idea that Asma'ullah tawqifiyatun. Names of God are tawqifi. Means that we can only use those names for God that are mentioned in religion, in the Quran, for example, and in the Hadith, for example. We cannot use any other name for God. So these people say we can understand, but only as much as mentioned in the Quran, or maximum Quran and Hadith, nothing more. Yes.
The first group, same thing.
No, the first group say we don't understand anything.
What about they follow the names and the tribute of Allah?
They say we just say it, but we don't understand what they mean. The first groups, they say we just say it because it's mentioned in the Quran, but we don't understand. These people say we understand, but we don't go further. We don't add any names or attributes to God. And also we don't analyze them a lot, just a little. They try to support their idea by referring to some verses of the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does tasbih. He glorifies himself. He does tasbih. Tasbih means tanzih. That he says, for example, Subhanallah amma yasifun, or Subhan rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala glorifies himself with respect to the way they describe God. Or for example, Ta'ala amma yaqulun uluwan kabira. So they say these verses show that people cannot describe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then they refer to some hadith as well. In addition to these verses, they refer to some hadith. These hadith can be found in all Muslims' collections of hadith, Sunni, Shia. For example, in Shia, in Al-Kafi, we have a section about Tawheed. Then there is a chapter with this title, Babun Nahy an as-sifa bighayr ma wasafa bihi nafsah. This chapter is about prohibition of describing God with anything other than what he has used to describe himself. yeah, النهي عن الصفة بغير ما وصف به نفسه. Any attribute other than what he has used to describe himself is prohibited. This is the title of this section. So, this is the third idea. The author says, if you want to put the points that they have mentioned in these theories, these ideas, in these three, we can sum up in three aspects, 3 points. One is they think tasbih and tanzih of God, not to suffer from tashbih, means that God should not have any common quality with creatures. Nothing should be common. Knowledge, power, life, will, nothing should be common, because otherwise they think this is tashbih. The other thing is that they say even if there is something common, we cannot understand. So if we can say we are alim, God is alim, but we don't understand, what does it mean? And the other thing is that we have to only follow a scripture, Quran and Hadith. We cannot go any further. So there are three major points here that might be raised. But let us see what is the idea of Muslim philosophers, especially people who have a very comprehensive and holistic understanding. With respect to the first issue, that God should not have anything common with creatures, the author says that it is true that nothing is like God. Yes, we accept that. It is also true that we cannot understand God fully and completely. Sometimes you find this expression, we cannot understand the essence of God. Or in Farsi we say kun. Kun means the essence, the very essence. We cannot understand essence of God. We cannot understand exactly, perfectly, completely, fully what God is. This is also true. So there is nothing like Him, one. We cannot understand Him fully, or we cannot understand His essence. That's also right. But these two do not mean and imply that we should stop studying God. We should stop using concepts for God just because they are also used for human beings. This is a mistake. For example, concept of knowledge. God is alim, He is knowledgeable. There is no problem in saying God is alim and we are alim. And we can say that alim also is used in the same sense. So please listen carefully. Those who have not passed usul and mantiq, they may misunderstand. But inshallah you understand well. Because alim is mushtarak ma'navi, not mushtarak lafzi. It has one meaning, one concept. But it doesn't mean that all cases that fall under alim are equal. Mushtarak ma'navi means there is one common term, but for different realities, different instances, different masadiq. Yeah? For example, we say water. Water can be water of a very pure, for example, a spring. Water can be water of a town which is, for example, salty. Water can be, if you go to, for example, some place and say water, they bring you water. But is it exactly the same as water that, for example, Zamzam, or, you go to a mountain and you have, pure water from a spring? They are not the same. But you cannot say we have used the term water in different meanings and different senses. You say insan, human being. You use insan for ordinary people. You use insan for good people, bad people. You use insan for Abu Lahab and Abu Jahl. And also you use for prophets. قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ. This doesn't mean they are equal. But the concept is the same. This word has one meaning which can be applied, but the realities are very much different. Yes.
Is it more on the mushtarak is lafzi?
No, mushtarak ma'nawi. Mushtarak lafzi means
For the meaning of this lafz, we say ma, the same lafz. For the meaning of
a meaning is the same.
the meaning.
How many meaning has ma?
In the sifat in ma.
No. Ma is used in one sense. Mushtarak lafzi is equivocal. So like ayn. Ayn can be used in the sense of eye.
It's mushtarak lafz.
This is lafzi. Ayn can be used as a spring. Yeah? Ayn can be used as a spy.
The difference in ma'na.
This is mushtarak lafzi. Ayn is used in different senses. But mushtarak ma'nawi means one meaning but different instances.
Different grades.
Then grades, levels can be different, can be the same. Yeah. For example, nur, light, has one meaning. But this light can be light of a candle, light of a lamp, light of sun, light of moon. Yeah, but one meaning. So we say we use common terms. Okay, these are univocal. These are common terms. They have one meaning, but different levels, different degrees, different, levels of perfection can be there. Depending, of course, sometimes can be the same, sometimes can be different. Mushtarak ma'nawi, sometimes it's the same, sometimes it's different. When we use terms which are common between God and human beings, then of course we don't mean that they are the same. But we say the term is used in the same meaning. But the reality, haqiqa, is different. For example, if you go to any Arabic dictionary and you ask what is the meaning of, for example, alim, they give you the same meaning. Alim, someone who has knowledge. But this alim can be alim of, for example, a village. Alim can be a teacher in Hose. Alim can be a marja. Alim can be alim who in a whole century is the most outstanding alim. Alim can be Imam Raza, we say alim Muhammad. Alim can be prophet. Alim can be God. But alim has one meaning. Okay? But the reality of that knowledge that this alim has is very much different. So, you should not think that either we don't use any term or we don't understand at all, Or we will be put into the problem of tashbih. There is a fine line in between. We use these common terms between God and human beings, but we are very much aware that we are not likening these human imperfect qualities to perfect qualities of God. Allah alimun or alimun or allamun, we can use the same for some human beings, but we know that they don't refer to the same realities, although they have the same meaning. This is a very important point. This is something that some people have missed. Even when you study philosophy of religion, you find many people also among Western thinkers and theologians also have missed this point. So, this is one point. The other point is about an example. After mentioning the idea in a general way, there is an example in the book about knowledge. For example, we know Allah's knowledge is eternal. Our knowledge is not eternal. But that's not a problem in using the same term of alim. Because we don't mean the reality of their ilm is the same. So we say human beings are alim, but we know their ilm is not eternal. Allah is alim, but his ilm is eternal. Or, for example, we use alim for God while we know that knowledge for him is necessary. But for us, knowledge is not necessary, because we may have knowledge and we may not have knowledge. For God is essential and necessary, has dharura, for us doesn't have necessity. Or for God, knowledge includes all particular things and universal things. He knows kulliyat, he knows juz'iyat, he knows all the details, he knows past, present, future. But our knowledge is very limited. But still we can say alim is a quality of God, and we can use it for human beings. Okay, so this is one important point. Another thing that you have to remember is that when you say God is different from us, which is true, but you should know, this is a very important point, maybe for the first time we are discussing this, I don't know, maybe once we mentioned this. In the same way that God has no similar, God has no opposite. Some people think that if we consider something or someone to be similar to God is a problem. But we can say there can be something opposite to God. In other words, they think God has no mithl, but he can have zid. Zid means opposite. But you don't see anything like this in Islam or Islamic philosophy. Because there is no opposite to wujud. Existence has no opposite. Opposite to existence does not exist. Yeah? Adam is not anything to stand in opposition to existence. Yes, but I'm talking for wujud first, then wajib wujud the same. Because indeed, the only wujud without limitation is wajib wujud. Did you get this point? Adam is nothing that can then stand in opposition to wujud. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no opposite. In divine justice, maybe we'll touch this point, that shaitan is not in a position to be opposite to God. Yeah? God has nothing as opposition or something to because opposite to God must have something of his own that can then pose a challenge or an enmity or opposition to God. There is nothing opposed to God. Nothing opposed to existence. This is a very important point. This can change your view totally if you think about it carefully. This world is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his creatures. How can then there be something opposite to God? Darkness is not opposite to light. It's just lack of light, not opposite. Okay, so if you understand this carefully, it means that there is no power. When we say La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, this is something very, very obvious. Because nothing else is there to oppose God, to be opposite to God. So, if you say God is alim, and then you want to say, but for example, we don't understand what is knowledge of God, or we just say God is not, for example, jahil, this doesn't make sense. Because whether you go from the path of tashbih or you want to bring something Z to God, doesn't make sense. You cannot say God's knowledge and our knowledge are opposite to each other or like each other. Do you get the point? If you say our knowledge is opposite to his knowledge, it's wrong. If you say it's similar to his knowledge, it's wrong. Both of them have problems. You can say we use one common concept, but they have different instances, different realities, but one meaning. Okay? This is a very important point. Then, another point is, what do you say about other concepts? If you are saying that we cannot use common concepts like alim, qadir, hay, murid, sami', basir for God and human beings, because thus they are common, we cannot use them, or we cannot understand them. Even if we use them, we say we use them but we don't know what they mean. Then Ayatollah Mutahari says, what about the concept of wujud and wahda? We have already talked about existence of God and unity of God. So can we say God is mawjood and we are also mawjood or not? God is wahid and we are also in some aspects wahid? Of course we can. So how we can say this with respect to these two concepts, but we cannot say about other concepts? And if you want to say even with respect to wujud and wahda, we have the same problem, then what do you want to say? You want to say we cannot say God is mawjood? We cannot say what God is one? So there is no way other than saying that we use these concepts for God, but we are very much aware that when it comes to realities, when it comes to the instances, they are different. Reality of knowledge that God has and knowledge that we have are very much different. But still, we can say it's knowledge. Still, it is knowledge. The other issue was about ability of human intellect. Because some people said our aql cannot understand attributes of God and we have to stop. So the author says, it seems that these people want to say the maximum human intellect can do is just to put concepts together or to analyze concepts, and maximum can do is tajreed, not intizar. If you remember, we said there are different stages of intellectual processing. You remember the difference between tajreed and intizar? Tajreed means to separate, to put aside. How we come to understand the concept of human being? When we are born, we are not born with the concept of insan. How we come to this concept? We first see different human beings. Then we compare them and find that there are differences and there are similarities. By putting aside differences, we come to something which is common, and we say we have insan, which is common between Zayd, Amr, Bakr, all these people that we see. This is called tajreed. Tajreed is simple. It's not that complicated. Because tajreed means just you put a'raz aside. Shape, color, size. You put aside, you reach the common concept of human being. Okay? And these are called ma'qulat ula. The first or primary intelligibles. But then if you remember, we said we have another process which is higher, and that is intizar, to abstract, which would lead to ma'qulat thaniyah, secondary intelligibles. When you want to reach the concept of, for example, mumkin, it's not as easy as reaching the concept of insan. For reaching insan, you consider Zayd and Bakr, remove a'raz, like shape, color, size, gender, you reach insan. But to reach mumkin, your aql has to go further. This is ma'qul thani. Because imkan, as you remember, is not jawhar or aras. Imkan is what we said, mahmulun min samimeh. You have to reflect on these individuals and totally with intellectual examination find that they are contingent. It's not easy just to say, I see Zayd and Bakr and I put aside their shape and color and size and I find humanity. It needs only intellectual examination. So, Ayatollah Mutahari says, human being is able not only to analyze, to do tajreed, to do ta'meem, generalization, but can do intizar. And intizar, to abstract concepts, helps us to reach concepts that can be used for different mahiyat, or even between mahiyat and wajibul wujud. Like the concept of wujud itself. Wujud is a concept that can be used for God and all mahiyat. And wujud is not itself a mahiyah or a ma'qul ula. or the concept of wahid we can use for. The same is with alim. We can use for God, and our aql is able. So you should not underestimate the power of aql. Yes, it is true that our aql is too little to understand God fully. But you should not underestimate aql and say, aql cannot understand God at all. The big difference between saying we can understand God fully, completely, this is wrong. But to say we cannot understand God at all, this is also wrong. Our aql is very capable, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given so much power to our aql that we can understand Him and we can really become arif of Him, yeah, totally with ma'rifah. Then, with respect to those hadith and verses of the Quran that they quoted, that say God is to be glorified with respect to what people describe, or hadith from Usul al-Kafi that we said. So Ayatollah Mutahari says that we don't want to say we can go beyond revelation. Please be very attentive. If someone wants to say that we are able to understand things about God which are not in the revelation and in the scripture, this is wrong. Okay? Because who can introduce God to us better than Himself in the revelation? But at the same time, no one should think that revelation is to freeze our aql and say you should only repeat and imitate what is there without any attempt to examine them and analyze them and understand them. You understand? Revelation is not to freeze your aql. Just say this and repeat this, finished. If you remember in Kalam, we had this famous story that one of the people of hadith was asked, what does it mean? Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arsh istawa. Yeah? He said, al-istawa'u ma'lumun wal-kayfu majhulun was-su'alu bid'ah. The meaning of istawa is known. The quality of God being dominant over throne is unknown. So we know the meaning, we don't know the quality, but asking about this is bid'ah. Because no one asked the Prophet about this question. So why you are asking me this question? Yeah? It's very helpful for ulama when they don't know how to answer to say as-su'alu bid'ah. But this is not the way of Ahlul Bayt, this is not the way of the Prophets. They always say, ask for understanding. Fas'alu ahla dhikr. It doesn't say no problem to ask. It says you should ask. Yeah? Fas'alu ahla dhikr. It doesn't say la bas ba'an tas'alu. It says fas'alu. So we know, see, these, alhamdulillah, because of the barakah of Ahlul Bayt and our scholarship that we have received from ulama, now things are easy for us. But of course, even today, people who are not very well educated, they make mistakes. But in the history, many different schools of theology were formed because of not getting these questions right. So we say, we don't say we can go beyond revelation, but at the same time we don't say that we should freeze our aql and just repeat verbally what is mentioned in revelation. Quran says you must reflect, ponder on revelation. Why? If you were just supposed to repeat, you don't need to ponder. Yeah? Do you ask a parrot to ponder?
No.
You just actually, if you are going to repeat, it's better not to ponder, because when you ponder, you cannot concentrate. Yeah, it's normally very difficult to find someone with very good memory and very high IQ. So those who have both together, they are very rare. Those who have good memory normally might not have good analyzing power, and those who have analyzing power, they don't have memory, good memory. To have them both makes wonders, of course. So this is also one point. The other thing is that, unfortunately, in that time, the time of early centuries of Islam, for example, when we have this hadith from Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, we had problem that some people were not learned, and these sciences also were not developed that much, and they were trying to undertake things that are not possible for them. They were, discussing essence of God, qualities of God, unity of God, but if they were, for example, today in any school or seminary, they were not even passing exam of the first year. Yeah? But at that time they were dealing with these issues. So sometimes you see Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam were asking people not to go into these discussions because they were not capable. But at the same time, there were people that Ahlul Bayt were encouraging them and training them for these questions. So it's very much matter of who is capable, who has the potential, the talents, the skills, and is prepared.
So you mean like Imam Jafar Talib would say to ask questions?
Yeah. Or, for example, Hisham ibn Hakam, Mu'min al-Tab, these are the people that Imams encouraged to go for theological discussion. Ibn Sina, who is one of greatest, philosophers and scholars for humanity, not only for Muslims. In the, towards the end of his book, in last sections of his book, Al-Isharat wa Tanbihat. He has a book which is a textbook used in the Hawza, Al-Isharat wa Tanbihat, which has many commentaries. In the Hawza, normally they study the commentary by Khaja Nasiruddin Tusi, Sharh al-Isharat wa Tanbihat, which is the commentary of Khaja on Isharat of Ibn Sina. In this book, there are also beautiful sections. There are 3 sections he calls Namat on Irfan. That Ayatollah Mutahari in Introduction to Irfan says it's one of the masterpieces on Irfan. Although normally Ibn Sina is not known as Arif, but in Isharat wa Tanbiyat he has very beautiful discussion about Irfan. So, in the same book, towards end of the book, he has a discussion about teaching philosophy. And he says, those who want to teach philosophy, they must know and observe few things. It's not something that everyone can do. So don't accept everyone as a student of philosophy. Because people have different talents and different ways of understanding. So philosophy is not for everyone. This is the first point. Second, he says those who want to study philosophy should have great IQ, very high IQ. They should be brave. They should have purity of soul. They should have good nature. They should have submission to the truth. Otherwise, if they come and learn philosophy, they can create troubles for themselves and other people. Okay? So, purity of the soul, intelligence, submission to the truth, all these things. So, they must be ulul albab, just to begin philosophy. Okay? Third, the teacher who teaches philosophy must be very careful in observing stages. So you don't teach everything at the same time. Little by little, step by step, you teach your students philosophy. And he says, when you want to teach something new, you should make sure that they have understood the previous things. And then he says, the teacher of philosophy must make a treaty with his students that they must not teach this to public. They should also do the same when they want to teach philosophy. Okay? So don't say now, this month of Ramadan, I want to teach philosophy on minbar. No, this is not for minbar. This is for the 4th year of Hose. Yes? And people who have already been prepared. Okay. So, we are fully aware that it's not something that everyone can understand about qualities of God, but at the same time we say it's not totally impossible. And this was the opinion of Ma'sumin Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, when they said people should not, put themselves into something that they cannot grasp. As an example, he mentions one hadith from that chapter. باب النهي عن الصفة بغير ما وصف به نفسه. Prohibition of describing God with something that he has not described himself with. A person asked Imam Sadiq alayhi salam a question. He said, there are some people in Iraq, because Imam alayhi salam was in Medina, so he says there are some people in Iraq that they describe God with tajassum. They consider God as a physical object. And they talk even about the lines on the face of God. When you want to, for example, describe face of someone. Yeah? So, for example, you say on his for example, head, there are these, for example, marks, or, his eyebrow is like this, his lips. So, this man said to Imam Sadiq, there are some people who describe God like this. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam replied, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to be glorified with respect to such attributions. There is nothing like him. He is Sami, he is Basir, but nothing like him. And then Imam alayhi salam explained that the right opinion about God is what we find in the Quran, and he gave him some, kind of guidance about this issue, that you use those things and ascribe those things to God that are mentioned in the Quran. And then Imam said, never go beyond the Quran, otherwise you will go astray after being guided. So, what we understand from this is that Imam tries to bring people who have gone away from the Quran back to the Quran. But Imam doesn't say, then when it comes to Quran, only repeat and recite what is there. don't reflect, don't try to understand it deeper. No, this is not the way that Ahlul Bayt were teaching people. And interestingly, he says, Ayatollah Mutahhari's book says, in the same hadith, Imam alayhi salam has used two terms for God. One is thabit, one is mawjud. Among other things like Sami, Basir, Alim, for example, Imam Sadiq used thabit. Thabit means something which is existing, something which is true, something which is stable, okay? Thabit. And mawjud. Interestingly, you don't find these two in Quran about God. In the Quran, God never is described as thabit or mawjud. These two terms are not used. So, Imam himself is practically showing us that there is no problem in using some terms as qualities for God as long as you are sure that they don't bring any liability, any limitations to God. And those people who say Asma'ullah Tawqifiyya, we can only use those names for God that are mentioned in the Quran or Hadith. First of all, that's about names, not sifat. But even that is not accepted by everyone. What is important is that whenever you want to use a concept for God, this is what we had in Aqaid. I repeat it here as a reminder. When you want to use any concept for God, if that concept is used in the Quran and Hadith, so you have peace of mind. Then it's a matter of how you interpret it. But if you want to use it for the first time, you have to examine that concept. If that concept is something which necessarily brings limitations, you cannot use it for God. For example, sleeping, we cannot use it for God. Sleeping. Eating, drinking, marrying, giving birth, dying, crying, we cannot use for God. Because essentially, they involve limitations. But if that concept essentially has no limitation, but accidentally can have limitations, you can use it, but you have to remove those accidents. For example, ilm essentially is not a problem. But in human beings, means accidentally, in some cases, ilm comes with what? With forgetfulness, confusion, okay, misunderstanding, learning, memorizing. These are all things that you cannot use for God, because God is not in need of learning. So when you say God has knowledge, but that knowledge comes with learning. When you say God has knowledge, not a knowledge that needs asking question, or knowledge which might be coming with confusion or forgetfulness. So, still you can use knowledge, but with these refined concepts. But what about sleeping? Can you do this with sleeping? No, because if we remove limitations from sleeping, nothing remains. Yeah? Sleeping is not like ilm. Ilm is something that essentially is okay. Just you have to be careful not to bring human limitations in knowledge to God. But there are concepts that have problem in their essence. You can never use them for God. Okay. This is the first lesson. Are you okay to continue? Or, yes? Yes.
I think Allah has said everywhere you look, you see the face of Allah. So in East or West, so He's mawjood. By Inference, he says is موجود.
Yes.
In Quran. Am I right or?
Yes, by inference, yes.
Yes.
Of course he's mawjud. But the term mawjud, you don't find any ayah which says Allah mawjudun. Yeah? Just the term. Otherwise, definitely by implication. Okay, if you are okay, we have another 10-15 minute discussion. You are not too tired? Because the main thing is to understand.
Yes.
Okay?
I can manage 15 minutes.
15 minutes, okay. So, this discussion actually is most of it familiar to you. It's about classifications of divine qualities. You remember we said in one way of classifying divine attributes, we divide them into those attributes which are related to his essence and those that relate to his actions. Remember, sifat zatiyya, sifat fi'liyya. Okay, attributes of essence, attributes of action. What are attributes of essence?
Qadir.
No, I mean the meaning.
Actually,
Part of the
about
essence.
him. Yeah, part of the
Ah.
essence.
No, how do you define? Attributes of essence are those attributes that are about God Himself. But attributes of action are about relation. Therefore, here in the book, you have another expression that might be new for you. It says, Sifat haqiqiyye, Sifat idafiyye. Haqiqiyye means they are real attributes of God. Idafa means nisbah, relation, relational. And then he says, Sifat haqiqiyye or Sifat zatiyye. Sifat idafiyye or Sifat fi'l. Okay? Sifat fi'l like khaliqiyya, raziqiyya, qafir, these type of things. They are, as you remember, we said, abstracted by our mind upon reflection on a relation between God and some of His creatures. For example, we reflect on the relation between God and something which is created by God. We say God is khaliq. For example, we say khalaqallah haza tifl al-yawm. God today created this child. We said there is no problem in saying today because this is sifat fi'l. Today this child was not created. Today is created. This doesn't mean that God has changed. This relation is new. Not God. Okay? We said something can be fixed, but if the other party has changed, the relation will change. Like you are in room deprived from sunshine, you go outside and you say, now sun is shining on me. But sun has not changed, you have changed. Sun was always ready to shine upon you. Okay? So, when we say God created al-yawm today, or today God gave me a child, or gave me rizq, or forgave me, this doesn't mean God has changed. This is because our relation has changed. And we said, for a relation to change, we don't need both parties to change. Even one party changes, the relation changes. Sometimes two people are the same, then the relation is the same. Sometimes one party changes and the relation changes. Sometimes both parties change and the relation changes. Is it clear? So, you, for example, you say, tonight I went to the class and everything was very understandable, very clear. Sheikh explained everything in the way I understood. This can be because of one of the two reasons. Either the Sheikh has explained better today, or you were more prepared today. Or both. So when relation changes, it can be both parties changing or one party changing. So it's not necessary that both always change. With respect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and relation that He has with us, we are changeable. So sifatul fi'l are all abstracted from relations that God has with His creatures, and they are called sifat idafiyya as well. Idafi, from idafa means nisbah, relation. Sifat al-Dhat are really about God, about the reality of God. They talk about His perfection. And therefore they are called sifat haqiqiyya. But sifat haqiqiyya or sifat al-Dhatiyya are also divided into two parts. Some of the sifat haqiqiyya or sifat al-Dhatiyya again involve idafa. And some of them, they don't involve idafa. I think this is the last thing for tonight. When you say God has life, al-hayy, Allahu la ilaha illahu al-hayy, hayat, life. Life is a quality of essence. And it is about God and doesn't involve necessarily relation. Yeah? Or knowledge of God about Himself. Does God know Himself or not? Yes. So does it involve any relation with anything else? No. But knowledge of God in His essence about others. Knowledge of God in Himself about others. That is sifat dhati, but dhatu idafa. It's essential quality, but involves relation, but not relation that is outside God. You know, God, for example, knows us even before we come to existence. So it's different from sifat fi'l. Because sifat fi'l does not happen unless the other party exists. You understand? Mm-hmm. But God's knowledge of us in Himself is eternal. Okay? So you can have qualities of essence which are purely about His essence. You can have qualities of essence which involve relation, but still they are part of the same category of sifat al-Zat, and they are eternal, they are necessary, and always there. And we have sifat fi'l which are idafi, means relational. Again, the same thing that we said about sifat al-subutiyya and salbiyya in kalam, repeat here. We have sifat al-subutiyya, which we affirm something for God, or sifat al-salbiyya, which means we negate. For example, we say God is not visible. God is not ignorant. God is not incompetent. Ajiz. Incompetent. God is not ajiz. God is not jism. Okay, this is sifat al-salbi. Of course, negating a quality which is negational means affirming. Yeah? When you say God is not visible, the result is you are saying something positive. Yeah? When you say God is not incompetent or God is not ignorant, means altogether, then you are saying God is competent, God is knowledgeable, God is beyond visibility. Okay? So salb salbe ijab. Yeah? Salb ijab. Negating something negative is like bringing something positive. Yeah? The result is the same. Okay, I think I stop here. I don't want to put you under pressure. So inshallah we continue next week. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. يا الله يحفظكم إن شاء الله.